The galactic apex chamber was as much theater as it was government. A ring of elevated thrones, each an organic or metallic marvel, hovered silently in orbit around the central floor, where transparent tiles floated above the cascading atmosphere of Vorthuan Prime. Seated in those thrones were the leaders of the Galactic Empire, a confederacy of hundreds of species, unified by conquest and fear, though never by trust. Today, laughter filled the dome. Deep, snorting guffaws from the brutish Brorix. Clicking chortles from the hive-minded Trilxi. Even the normally serene Hyderans shook with restrained mirth, their liquid forms bubbling in amusement. A 3-meter reptilian warlord, scaled in golden armor and smugness, waved a digit-clad claw toward the chamber's holoscreen. It displayed looped footage of a human soldier tripping during a battlefield training sim. Again and again the soldier, a boy barely out of adolescence, slipped on the ramp and fell flat on his face. The Brorix howled, slapping their massive thighs. These are the Terrans? The great predators of Sol. The apex stumblers, barked a Trilxi ambassador, its antennae flailing from laughter. Please, drawled a Zartak fleet marshal, swirling a luminous drink in his coil-wrapped hand. If Earth's young warriors are this clumsy, it's no wonder they cry for peace treaties like children cry for candy. Another chuckle swept the room. At the center platform, where emissaries from non-member species were granted temporary seating, the lone human representative sat silent. She wore a tailored navy blue blazer over a dark gray blouse, Earth civilian diplomatic dress. No armor. No rank insignia. Her only adornment was a silver locket resting just beneath her collarbone. Her hair was tied back with absolute neatness. She sat with legs crossed, hands relaxed in her lap, as though listening to elevator music. Her name had been read aloud at the beginning of the session, but few paid it any mind. Ambassador Evelyn Ward. They assumed she was decoration, sent to represent a defeated world clinging to protocol. Until she stood. Her movement was quiet. Controlled. She did not clear her throat or demand attention. She simply walked onto the main speaking circle and waited. The laughter slowly tapered. Curiosity always won out in a room full of predators. Esteemed members of the council, she began, her voice smooth, each syllable rolling off her tongue like cool mist. Thank you for the warm welcome. Earth appreciates the opportunity to observe your operations up close. Though, she offered a slight smile, as though amused by a private joke. We apologize if our entertainment value has overshadowed our presence. A low murmur followed. The tone had shifted. Her accent was unmistakably Terran, but her poise was oddly, still, disarming. Let me be brief, she said, pacing slowly. You're not wrong to laugh. Humor is a necessary release, especially for empires growing increasingly insecure about their structural cracks. The Brorix stopped chuckling. The Trilxi buzzed irritably. I only ask, Evelyn continued, her eyes slowly moving from throne to throne, that you consider the full nature of your guest. We're often underestimated, humans that is, not for lack of capability, but because we smile too much. We clap during music. We cry when fictional characters die. We hold hands in war zones. She looked directly at the Zartak fleet marshal, who had been quietly sipping during her entire speech. We also invent new ways to kill with household items. And we've been known to cook our enemies' bones into broth during sieges. Silence. Utter silence. Then a weak cough from the Hyderan ambassador. Evelyn gave a pleasant nod, as if wrapping up a book club summary. But please, laugh. It helps ease the nerves. The Zartak leaned forward. Are you threatening this council, Terran? Not at all, she said warmly. That would imply I believe you're capable of fear. I'm here to deliver our observations, and to answer your questions, should you find the time between mockery. Her words weren't loud, but they landed like stones in water. The ripples were visible in posture shifts, in the sudden silences. From the shadows near the chamber's northern edge, a wizened Andrak, species unknown to many, leaned closer to his translator device, mandibles twitching. She doesn't speak to impress, he murmured to his adjutant. She speaks to measure our response. The adjutant, A translucent skinned Irasi blinked. Measure, the Andrak whispered. Every syllable she utters, it's bait. Back at the center, Evelyn clasped her hands behind her back and waited. The chamber now observed her in an entirely different light. Tell us, human, croaked a bureaucrat from the Gurish Dominion. Why has Earth sent you and not one of your warriors? We were under the impression you'd retaliate after the Vora 9 incident. Evelyn tilted her head, almost pitying. Retaliate? No. Earth is a peaceful civilization. We have no need for vengeance. She let that hang. Only balance. The Gurish delegate frowned. Your species makes no demands? We're not here to bargain. Evelyn moved to the nearest display console and tapped in a command. The holoscreen flickered. Gone was the clumsy human soldier. Now, a rotating star map. The Empire's core systems. Fascinating layout, she mused. Your defense rings are elegant, if a little outdated. There's a blind spot in Sector Theta, gravitational static from the ice moon. That's where we first saw your scouts, watching our Martian colonies. A quiet rustle of motion echoed around the council. We also traced your signal hacking tests on Ceres. That was cute. Amateurish, but cute. The Broric warlord stood. You dare accuse us of subversion? Evelyn looked up at him and said nothing for a moment. Then, why accuse you of something you're so bad at? I'd rather offer a workshop. Snorts, snickers, this time, from the outer species observers. The Empire didn't like being laughed at. The Zartak narrowed his eyes. Tell us what Earth wants, or remove yourself from this floor. Evelyn blinked slowly. Very well. She turned off the holoscreen. What we want, she paused, looking down at her silver locket, thumbing it once, is understanding. Another pause. Then quieter. And perhaps justice. The word hit differently. Not loud but hard. Like gravity increasing in the room. Justice for what? The Hyderan ambassador asked, voice bubbling uneasily. Evelyn stepped back onto the center circle. Your broadcasts of the Vora 9 encounter. You aired them live across dozens of systems. You celebrated the execution of 19 Terrans captured during a ceasefire flag. You assumed they were combatants. She raised her chin slightly. 5 of them were underage. Civilian cadets on an education exchange. The youngest was 12. Silence rippled out like frost. Evelyn's smile faded. Not out of anger, but out of weariness. Like a teacher disappointed, not furious. You didn't just kill our children, she said. You made sure we saw it. You wanted us to feel fear. The Trilxie clicked nervously. That is inaccurate. The footage was analyzed for military threat. We saw the laughter, Evelyn interrupted. Your officers dancing in the blood. Your comment threads full of jokes. The chamber grew still. Then, from the far corner, the Andrak ambassador stood. Leave her be. The others turned, startled. She is not here to demand. She is here to see how long it takes for us to feel guilt. Evelyn gave him a small bow. You see, she said, humans have evolved many forms of warfare. But the most refined is psychological. We smile because we learned long ago. The dead don't hear you scream. But the living can still remember who smiled while watching their children burn. Another silence. This one suffocating. Then Evelyn took a breath, the professional warmth returning. In any case, I thank you for your time. I hope to report back to Earth that the Empire still possesses some spark of empathy. If not, well. She trailed off. The Hyderan swallowed. If not, what? She walked toward the exit platform, pausing at the threshold. Then turned back, hands behind her back again. If not, I'll recommend we proceed to Phase 2. The Zartak shot to his feet. What is Phase 2? Evelyn's tone was perfectly level. The part where we stop pretending we're impressed. And with that, she stepped into the teleport ring and vanished, leaving a room full of aliens, some furious, others frozen, and one very old Andrak whispering a quiet truth. They didn't send her to talk. The atmosphere in the galactic apex chamber hadn't shifted, it had broken. Where once mocking laughter had rippled like waves across the ornate hall, now there was only the uncomfortable hiss of recirculated air, broken by the occasional dry cough or the whispered hum of interspecies translators calibrating nervously. The human was gone, but the chill she left remained, coiled around every ambassador's neck like an unseen noose. In the shadowed corridors behind the main chamber, Ambassador Evelyn Ward walked alone. Her steps were deliberate, not fast. She didn't need to run. Not when she already knew the council would follow. Every step echoed with the confidence of someone who understood the architecture better than its builders. She paused in front of a high arched door lined with bioluminescent glyphs. An elite guardsman of the Tselkin order, 3 meters tall, plated in dark crystal armor, stepped forward, halberd lowered to block her. "Restricted," it hissed. Evelyn stared up at him, unflinching. "I have clearance granted by the Vorthuan Codex, Clause 37. Observational envoys may request private audience with the Speaker's Court." The Tselkin guard's blank visor didn't move. "You are not speaker level." She smiled, gently. "Not yet." He held her gaze for a moment longer, then stepped aside with a grunt. The door slithered open with a sound like wet stone. Inside, the antechamber pulsed with the low ambient glow of biosconces. Around a circular table sat 5 of the Empire's regional overseers, one from each major quadrant, representing different species, cultures, and doctrines. They had gathered in panic. None would admit it. Evelyn stepped in and did not wait to be acknowledged. The one-eyed, scale-wrapped Drulathai admiral, barely able to sit still in his ill-fitting civilian robes, glared at her. "How did you get this far into restricted clearance?" She set a small device on the table. It projected an old Earth image, a chessboard. "I didn't need to infiltrate," she said. "I asked nicely." The admiral's mandibles clicked. "What is that? An Earth military formation?" "It's a game," she replied. "One we invented to simulate conflict, strategy, misdirection." The Hyderan overseer, a fluid mass inside a reinforced hover shell, shimmered nervously. "This is irrelevant." "Only if you think Earth came here without a plan," she replied. "You executed 5 of our miners. That wasn't just a war crime. It was an invitation." They stiffened. Evelyn leaned in. "You thought we'd come with fleets. With bombs. But Earth already learned the hard way that wars aren't won with brute strength alone." The Andrak ambassador, called only he who remembers the first fire, hovered into view from a side corridor. He had no mouth. No eyes. Yet everyone stopped speaking when he arrived. "I warned them," he said, voice vibrating through their bones. "I said the humans study silence. Not noise." Evelyn offered him a nod. "You're the first one here who doesn't underestimate us." The Andrak bowed. "We did once. We lost an entire colony." The Hyderan rippled. "This is absurd. You're one woman." Evelyn tapped the chess piece. "So was Joan of Arc." The room went quiet again, save for the faint thrum of Evelyn's heart monitor under her blazer. She let the silence stretch until it grew awkward. Then, "Do you know why Earth sends diplomats instead of soldiers?" No response. "We smile," she said. "We laugh at your jokes. We ask how your families are. Because we want you to look away long enough for us to measure you. You see pleasantries. We see openings." The Drulathai scoffed. "You think we're afraid of your charm?" "No," she said plainly. "You're afraid of what's coming after it." She slid a small cylindrical object onto the table. It clicked once. "What is that?" The Hyderan buzzed. "A conversation starter," she said. The cylinder lit up, casting 3-dimensional holograms into the air. Surveillance feeds from the Empire's own internal cameras, dozens of them. Starship engines, AI cores, planetary shield nodes. All clearly labeled in Terran script. "I had a lot of coffee while waiting for this meeting," Evelyn said lightly. "Plenty of time to decrypt your system." The Andrak flinched. "This can't be live." "It is. We've been inside your network for 4 weeks. Our team embedded a virus using the same nanotech you approved last cycle for data acceleration. The packets piggybacked on your public forum servers. The Hyderan's shell flashed crimson. You hacked the Empire? We adjusted your perspective. The Drillithai surged to his feet. This is war. No, Evelyn said, calm as ever. This is chess. Her eyes met his. And I just called check. One of the feeds showed a Galactic Navy hangar powering down mid-launch. Another showed an orbital defense ring failing diagnostics. Each second revealed another blind spot exposed. I haven't come to fight, Evelyn said. I came to offer you a choice. Stop hiding behind council votes and face what you did. Apologize. Acknowledge the children you killed. Or... She gestured to the images hovering above them. The Hyderan's voice was trembling now. Or what? We let the real mission begin. The chamber trembled, faintly at first, then with a subtle lurch. The lights dimmed. One of the wall glyphs flickered. Andrak turned slowly to Evelyn. You didn't just infiltrate us. No, she said. You've already started. Evelyn didn't confirm or deny. She only stepped back from the table. You think Earth is made of peace and protests, but you've only seen the version of us we allow to walk into the light. She turned, walking toward the door again. If you're smart, you'll advise the Empire to step down quietly, because the next person we send won't be a diplomat. And what will they be? Asked the Hyderan. Evelyn paused, hand on the panel. A parent. She vanished through the exit. And with her, the last illusion of safety. Elsewhere, light years away, a minor system in the Empire's outer ring experienced a blackout. Not a power failure, an information collapse. No messages could be sent off-world. No ships responded. No satellites returned feeds. The planetary governor assumed it was a weather event, until a child's voice rang out over the emergency broadcast system. It was a pre-recorded human child, speaking a phrase on loop. We remember who laughed. The message repeated every 30 seconds. Unstoppable. Back in the Empire's inner capital, chaos brewed beneath ceremony. The council pretended to carry on as usual. Delegates delivered statements. News feeds continued. But something had changed. Not in the headlines. In the pauses between sentences. In the unease behind every forced laugh. Word was spreading. The humans had smiled when they arrived. Smiled when mocked. Smiled when their children were killed. And they were still smiling. In a high-security observatory aboard the orbital station Glavrix 9, a Zartak admiral reviewed her fleet readiness. She wore a gold-trimmed command cape and held herself like a monarch among insects. But today, something gnawed at her spine. A comms officer interrupted. Admiral, we've received an encrypted diplomatic message from Earth. From the woman? She asked. No, ma'am. From a man. The file opened on her personal screen. Just one sentence. If you touch one more child, we stop playing nice. In her private chamber aboard the human diplomatic vessel Foresight, Evelyn sat alone. The room was minimal. One desk, one chair, a tea set, and a shelf of books. Classical Earth literature. Titles translated into Galactic Standard. She stared out the window at the glowing sprawl of Vorthuan Prime. A soft tone chimed. Ambassador, came the voice of her aide, a young lieutenant from Luna Base. Are we proceeding to Phase 2? Evelyn considered. Not yet. Not until they were ready. Open a channel to command, she said. Full encryption. The wall shimmered. A man appeared. Gray at the temples, calm eyes, military bearing in civilian clothes. Evelyn, he said. How'd the talk go? They blinked, she replied. But it's not fear yet. It's the quiet before a storm. The man leaned in slightly. And you? Evelyn exhaled. They killed children, Matthew. I don't want revenge. I know. I want memory. She looked away. When it's time, he said softly. Just say the word. She nodded once. Phase 2 begins when they stop pretending they didn't know. Later that day, the Andrak ambassador summoned a private meeting with the supreme speaker of the empire. He had not left his meditation tank in over a century. But today, he wore full ceremonial garb. "We miscalculated," the Andrak said simply. The speaker, an ancient being with tendrils for eyes, responded coldly. "They cannot touch us. Not truly." "They already have," the Andrak said. "They didn't send warships. They sent trauma. And we invited it in with applause." At precisely midnight, across 7 systems, thousands of private communication devices flickered on simultaneously. They all displayed the same image. A child's crayon drawing, an alien ship hovering above Earth. People below, some reaching up, others lying down. A heart drawn in red. Beside it, a note in shaky English. "Please stop killing. We just want to learn." It wasn't propaganda. It was real. The drawing belonged to Miri Lin, age 12. One of the cadets executed on Vora 9. The message was followed by GPS coordinates, one in each of the Empire's core sectors. None of the recipients understood what they were. Not yet. But deep in the archives of Earth's war history, those coordinates matched ancient Terran strategic triangulation patterns. It meant one thing. Earth wasn't retaliating. It was prepositioning. Back in her quarters, Evelyn poured herself tea. A soft blend from the mountains of old Switzerland. She hummed to herself as she stirred in honey. From her pocket, she drew the silver locket. She opened it. Inside was a photo. A young girl, laughing in a training jumpsuit. The same girl whose drawing had just shaken a galaxy. Her daughter. Her name was Miri. Evelyn whispered something into the empty room. "You should have never made her a symbol." The camera in the wall, unknown to the aliens, blinked red once. The countdown had begun. And the humans weren't angry. They were patient. The Galactic Council chamber was silent when Evelyn Ward returned. No laughter this time. No snide remarks. No jokes about Earth's music or its primitive combustion engines. Instead, there were only eyes, compound, multifaceted, or glowing, locked on the human woman who now stood not as a novelty, but as a reminder. Of something ancient. Something dangerous. And something still unfinished. She stood once again in the center, beneath the pale halo of light. Her expression was unreadable, her posture relaxed, her presence absolute. Behind her, a hovering holodrape displayed a slowly rotating image of Earth. Not a war-torn one, not a grim battlefield. Just the blue planet. Serene. Alive. Evelyn waited. She didn't begin with a greeting. This wasn't diplomacy anymore. "This chamber," she said finally, "once debated whether Earth deserved a seat at your table. The vote passed by a margin of 4. 4 voices thought we were civilized enough. The rest thought we were amusing." She let her gaze wander. "You mocked our biology, our sentimentality, our history of infighting. You studied us through screens and sanitized data, and assumed our species' greatest weakness was that we care." A rustle moved through the delegation, uneasy shifting, subtle throat clicks, tail twitches. Not one dared interrupt. "You thought we cried too easily. That we grieved too long. That our love for stories and symbols and names made us fragile." She paused, then looked toward the Hyderan ambassador. "You were right." The Hyderan flinched, its gelatinous core pulsing blue. "We are fragile. We are slow to forget pain. We make monuments, poems, anniversaries for those we lose. We give our children medals for surviving things they should never have seen. You thought that made us weak." She raised a hand, and the hologram behind her shifted. Now it showed faces. Children. Earth children. Some grinning in jumpsuits. Some waving at cameras in zero-G modules. Some asleep in pods, dreams on pause for interstellar relocation. Then came the footage, broadcast by the Empire itself, the same way one might advertise a product. Vora 9. The execution pit. The bodies were blurred now, but the sound wasn't. A scream. A sob. A shouted name. And laughter. From alien officers. From the crowd. Evelyn didn't turn away. She didn't blink. She stood as the footage played for 10 full seconds, each one longer than a minute, each one a fracture in the room's composure. Then the screen went black. Only her voice remained. You killed our children. Not loud. Not angry. Just, true. 5 minors. 3 girls. 2 boys. Ages 10 to 14. Non-combatants. They were cadets, yes. Trainees. Tourists, practically. They'd never fired a weapon. Never been to a real battlefield. They were taken during a flagged ceasefire. Her voice didn't rise. You killed them anyway. The Andrak bowed his head. His tendrils curled tightly. You didn't just kill them, she continued. You didn't even call it an accident. You celebrated it. You used their deaths as proof that Earth should kneel, that humans could bleed. Now her tone shifted, ever so slightly. Not louder. Just colder. You assumed Earth would mourn quietly. You assumed their families would beg for understanding. The screen behind her shifted again. Now, riots. Not chaotic ones, but organized. Coordinated. Civilians handing off tools to soldiers. Cities converting stadiums into logistical hubs. Teachers enlisting. Doctors training in trauma triage en masse. Children, more children, signing waivers with jaws clenched and eyes dry. The Empire had expected tears. Instead, they got unity. You misunderstood us, Evelyn said. We don't fear grief. We carry it. She took a breath. Her eyes, normally calm, now burned, softly, like the coals of a fire too long left alone. You forced us to remember what we were before we tried diplomacy. You forced us to dust off old instincts. And now the part of us we buried is waking up. There was a commotion from the Zartak delegation. One of them, a young commander, stood abruptly. This is a staged threat, he spat. A dramatic display. Earth wouldn't dare engage in a real act of war against the Empire. Evelyn looked at him. Just looked. It was enough. I didn't come to threaten, she said. I came to warn you that you're already losing. She reached into her blazer pocket and withdrew a slim remote. With one press, the center of the chamber darkened. A projection lit up, not holographic. Actual signal, live broadcast. Footage of Empire warships shutting down in real time. Systems freezing. Engines powering down. Artificial gravity failing. Station by station. Sector by sector. The virus wasn't ours, she said softly. It was yours. You developed it to use against us. We just helped it do its job better. Shock rolled through the chamber. You modified our own military software? We did more than that, Evelyn replied. We let your ego do the heavy lifting. She held up her wrist, an antique analog watch. Tick, tick, tick. At the same time, across the Empire's core systems, a repeating pulse jammed starport transmissions. One phrase encoded in every frequency. We remember the children. The Andrak ambassador finally spoke. They were already inside. Evelyn nodded. The moment you streamed the deaths, Earth stopped watching and started calculating. The Trilxie ambassador sputtered. This is disproportionate. It's not just military targets going dark, we're seeing civil sectors, trade systems, navigation relays. You should be grateful, Evelyn cut in. We could have taken your life support. Your hospitals. Your schools. She stepped forward. But we remember what it means to be angry. And we chose something worse. Silence. Then she said, we chose to terrify you. She gestured again. More feeds appeared, alien civilians evacuating, planetary governors broadcasting emergency messages, fleets stranded, confused, exposed. A Zartak admiral slammed her hand on the console. What do you want? Reparations? Apologies? Sanctions lifted on Earth. Evelyn's face hardened. No. The air was vacuum still. We want you to feel what it's like to know you've already lost. We want you to see your systems fail, your defenses fall, your ships drift helpless through space, and know that it happened because you laughed while our children died. The Andrak closed his eyes. "You're not fighting for power," he said. "No," Evelyn whispered. "We're fighting for memory." A long, agonizing pause stretched across the chamber. Then, finally, the Hydaran spoke. "What happens now?" Evelyn's eyes locked onto his. "Now? You evacuate your embassies. You decommission your ships. You remove your flags from every world where a human child has ever cried. You step down, step back, and never forget." The projector behind her flickered once more. A new message appeared. Not in English. Not in Galactic Standard. In every language used by every species on the Council, one phrase repeated. "You killed our children. Now, remember them." Evelyn turned. She walked away again. But this time, the silence left behind was not confusion. It was terror. And in its center, a single truth remained. Earth hadn't come to conquer. They had come to make the galaxy remember. The council chamber stood empty now. Not by order, not by vote. No official announcement had been made. It had simply emptied. The mighty galactic empire, once drunk on laughter and certainty, was now nursing the sobering hangover of realization. Delegates had returned to their homeworlds. Some to prepare. Others to run. Evelyn Ward walked alone through the silent chamber, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. The central light that once spotlighted her speeches now followed her like a quiet moon. Above her, the planet Vorthuan rotated in peaceful ignorance. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was done smiling. In a private war room buried deep beneath the Imperial complex, the last remaining high-level counselors had gathered, frayed nerves disguised behind layers of protocol. They spoke in clipped tones, surrounded by security droids and encrypted relays. The Zartak admiral leaned over the central table. Her hands trembled, just barely as she spoke. "We have lost contact with every orbital defense ring." "Every?" The Hydaran choked. The admiral didn't nod. She didn't have to. The Trilxie envoy clacked his mandibles together. "There's no trace of a human fleet. No battle groups. No carrier lines. Just loss." "You still don't get it," came a voice from the room's edge. Evelyn stepped forward from the shadows, her uniform replaced by a dark utility coat with no emblems. No title. Just presence. "You still think we came here for war? That we needed one?" The counselors turned as one, defensive and cornered, like predators caught in their own trap. "What do you want from us?" The Hydaran croaked. "I already told you," Evelyn said. "Nothing. We can give you back territory, trade routes." "No." The Drillithai general snarled. "Then why let us live?" Evelyn looked at him. She let the moment stretch. "You're not alive. Not the way you were. You just haven't collapsed yet." She placed a device on the table, a simple cube of earth alloy. It hummed softly. The Hydaran backed away. "Another bomb?" "No," Evelyn said. "A mirror." The cube activated. What filled the room wasn't footage. Not data. It was a simulation, rendered from harvested memories, broadcasted screams, silent cameras no one had noticed. A perfect recreation of the final moments of the 5 cadets from Vora 9. Each death rendered not for brutality, but for truth. The flickering light reflected off faces that hadn't cried in decades. The Drillithai sat down. Hard. Evelyn didn't look at the screen. She'd memorized it already. Each cry, each plea, each second. "I asked Earth Command not to retaliate," she said. "I asked them to wait. To let me try a different way." You didn't authorize this?" The Trilxie asked, shocked. "I didn't need to," she replied. "That's the thing about humans. When someone kills our children, we don't wait for permission. We move as one. Mothers. Fathers. Siblings. Teachers. It doesn't matter. We all become the same thing." The Hydaran's voice was barely audible. "What thing?" Evelyn turned to him. "A promise." She deactivated the cube. The room dimmed. She walked toward the exit, her steps soft, controlled, final. "You don't need a treaty," she said. You don't need to sign anything. There will be no ceremony. The Zartak stood. Then what happens now? You remember. She opened the door. And you never forget what it cost you to make us stop smiling. She left them there in silence. Because silence was the only sound that could echo loud enough to carry a lesson. Outside the war room, the skies over Vorthuin glowed with warning signals. Civilian shuttles darted like insects. Markets were empty. Ports quiet. Ships remained grounded not because of fuel shortages, but because no one wanted to test if the humans were still watching. They were. Back aboard the Foresight, Evelyn sat at the forward observation deck. A single teacup rested beside her. The stars glittered. No fleets. No banners. No displays of power. Just stillness. A voice broke the quiet. Ma'am. Her aide, Lieutenant Armin, stood at attention. They've begun dismantling their outer defenses. Some planetary governors are opening negotiations with third-party alliances. Their news feeds are calling it the Great Humbling. Evelyn nodded. Any word from Earth? He hesitated. Yes. General Halstead wants to know if we should initiate final fallback withdrawals. He says your mission is complete. Evelyn stared out the window a moment longer. No, she said. Not yet. Ma'am? She turned toward him, her gaze heavy and precise. I need a broadcast. One that reaches every system. No encryption. No barriers. He nodded and disappeared. The chamber dimmed. A single camera activated. Evelyn stood before it. No speech written. No script in hand. People of the Galactic Empire, she began. You don't know me. Not truly. My name is Evelyn Ward. I came to you as a diplomat. A representative. A mother. She lifted the locket from her chest. This belonged to my daughter, Miri. You murdered her. No rage. No scream. Just a statement. But this isn't a threat. It's a message. To the ones still watching. Still wondering if the Empire's actions will be answered by war. She opened the locket. Inside, a small photo. Miri, laughing, a model spaceship in hand. You already lost the war. Her voice softened. Because you made the same mistake every empire makes. You mistook our restraint for weakness. You mistook our peace for submission. You mistook our smile for permission. She stepped closer to the lens. We don't smile because we're harmless. Her words cut like glass. We smile because we already know how it ends. The transmission ended. Across 1,000 systems, screens went black. And stayed that way. In its place, one final symbol pulsed. A hand. A child's handprint. Below it, one phrase. Remember Miri. The following day, the Empire's Central Council resigned en masse. A dozen worlds declared independence. Hundreds more began peace talks with Earth-aligned factions. And Evelyn Ward left Vorthuin behind, her mission complete. But not forgotten. She returned to Earth not with parades, but with silence. The kind that surrounds monuments. The kind you hear in a courtroom before a verdict. She walked through the halls of command. Past the generals. Past the senators. Into a small room lined with photos of the fallen. She placed the locket in a glass case. No inscription. Just memory. When she stepped back outside, the wind was cold. The sun was rising. A young cadet waited for her on the steps. Ambassador Ward? She turned. I wanted to say, my sister knew your daughter. In training. She said Miri was funny. She always smiled. Evelyn smiled then. For the first time in days. She did, she said. And now you know why I did too. The cadet hesitated. Are we at peace? Evelyn looked toward the horizon, where the sky was clearing, the clouds lifting. No, she said. But they are. And with that, she walked away. Behind her, in every shadow where cruelty once hid, a single truth now lived. Earth didn't start wars. But it never, ever forgot how to end them. And this time, they ended it with memory, with silence, with precision. And a smile. The kind you give just before the world learns what it means to cross humanity's line. The line you never see, until you've already crossed it.